One reason is that
a workshop on the new opportunities in the agritourism sector in the Pacific was organized as a side event of the first ever Pacific Week of Agriculture 2017, which took place in Port-Vila, Vanuatu from October 16th to Friday 20th, 2017. The half-day event took place at the Melanesian Hotel's conference room on the afternoon of day 3 of the PWA 2017, Wednesday, October 19th, from 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. The workshop featured the progress made in the Pacific region in establishing a policy framework on agri-tourism and the concrete steps taken by several countries in the Pacific, such as Samoa and Vanuatu, in this regard. After vast consultation between the policymakers and the private sector, Vanuatu was the first country in the region to develop and launch its national agritourism policy. In his opening keynotes, the Director General of the Vanuatu Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Forestry, Fisheries and Biosecurity, Benjamin Shing, spoke about the Vanuatu Agritourism Policy Framework and strategy that was launched by the Vanuatu government since 2014 in order to establish and strengthen the linkages between the productive and tourism sectors. The Vanuatu tourism sector alone currently represents almost 80% of the country's gross domestic product. After launching its national agritourism policy, the Vanuatu government went on further by declaring 2017 as the Vanuatu National Year of Agritourism. Mr. Shing also mentioned that although Vanuatu is currently leading all the other Pacific Island countries in terms of cruise tourism, the surveys show that 60% of the food used by the hotels and restaurants in Vanuatu that could be produced locally is still being imported from Australia and New Zealand, a trend that is more or less the same in all the other Pacific Island countries. Mr. Shing pointed out that the Vanuatu government has already taken concrete measures in order to address the country's food import bill by trying to substitute the importations of commodities currently imported from overseas that can be produced locally. The Vanuatu government has already identified in this regard 3 commodities, namely potatoes, carrots and onions, that are already produced locally by farmers from the island of Tanna. To scale up their production, the Vanuatu government through the Ministry of Agriculture has initiated a mechanization policy by acquiring tractors through the Australian aid and the New Zealand aid, and it will soon make them available to the farmers on the island of Tanna. Mr. Shing also mentioned that the Vanuatu government is currently preparing a bill called the Primary Producers Association Bill that will be tabled in Parliament on November 2017 to try and strengthen the organizations of farmers under specific crops. For the Vanuatu government, that bill will change agriculture in Vanuatu. Representatives from Samoa also made their presentation about the progress of the agritourism policy framework and all that has been done to enhance the linkages between the primary sector and tourism sector in their country. Various representatives from Fiji also spoke in that regard. Savenada Dhaka Wangai Nambete, the business development analyst from Joe's Farm, the leader in hydroponically farmed groceries and #1 producer and distributor of lettuce, tomatoes and other groceries in Fiji, made an interesting presentation on their value chain, from the production phase, the collection and the distribution phase of their produce from farm to the market in Suva and other urban centers in Fiji. He also emphasized on the importance of the 4-way MOU and good networking of partnership that they have established between Joe's Farm, the Fijian Ministry of Agriculture, and province that represents their farmers and also other stakeholders involved in the value chain. Apart from the hydroponic farms, Joe's Farm is also working with a considerable number of lettuce and tomato smallholders farmers in Fiji. He also spoke about the successful outcome of the setting up of collection centers near their smallholder farmers and how that initiative contributed to improve the regularity of the supply of groceries to the markets. And he also mentioned about the importance of the networking partnership that has been established between the government, the province representing the farmers, the processors and the distributors to ensure the success of the value chain, and also that every stakeholders involved are satisfied. The representative of the Pacific Island Private Sector Organization, PIPSO, Alisi Tuka, did a brief intervention about the work that the regional organization is doing in helping the SMEs throughout the region in the area of agritourism. The Pacific consultant in agritourism, Mireia Volavola, summarizes the main points that transpired from that workshop.
Some of the key outcomes that came out from the workshop this afternoon particularly highlighted the need for the agriculture sector and the tourism sector to work together, and particularly in the case of government ministries in developing policies, knowing that the agriculture and the tourism industry are 2 key important sectors in the economy in the Pacific. So there's a need to work together in that regard. A lot of studies have highlighted that a lot of food that are used in the tourism industry are imported, and they found that most of the food that have been imported can be grown locally in that regard. So this is where the emphasis coming in, the need for these people to work more closely together. As we can see, as highlighted by SPTO, there's a need to marry these two. And in some countries like Samoa, they have really gone ahead, whereas in some countries like Fiji, Solomon Islands, and other countries, they're still trying to find their way. But these are two, big sectors, but there's a need to merge rather than working in silos in that regard. Furthermore, as we can see in the case of the private sector, whether there's a government policy or no government policy, the private sector will move ahead and seize the opportunity that are present. And in this case, we've heard examples from the respective private sector operating in different countries on what they are doing and the opportunities there is in terms of agritourism in that regard.
In his presentation, the CEO of the South Pacific Tourism Organization, SPTO, Chris Cocker, said that the Pacific Island states should focus on the concept of food tourism in order to promote the Pacific as a food destination.
The food tourism is very important, particularly if we're talking of agriculture in this case. And as you can see during my presentation, the great potential tourism offers to our Pacific Islands in this case. We've got 2 million visitors that are coming, and of course that will continue to grow. And food tourism, and one of the things that we actually push in the Pacific is niche tourism, because we can't cater for mass tourism, and that's sun, sand and sea, because all the different competitors serve that. So we need to focus on some certain niche, and that's why we also pick food tourism. And as you can see, food is a very important basic need for tourists. They need the place to stay, they need how to get here, and also in terms of what to eat in destination in this case. I still feel that there is a need to collaborate stronger between the two sectors. It's still weak in some island countries. Fortunately, in Vanuatu, there's been collaboration in this case, but just sharing of information and communicating is very important in this area. And food tourism is a high yield market for tourists, because as mentioned by our Caribbean colleague, people can reside in cheap accommodation but spend more on food in this case. And as you can see, about 30% of the tourist expenditure is spent on food in this area, and it also is an important determining factor for their experience in a destination, is how good the food is, etc. But I think one of the key messages that we need to bring out to whether it's the cafes, etc., the chefs, is they need to be more innovative and creative in producing and using our local produce in this case. And also the good thing about food tourism, it is import substitution, and it is a first step for our farmers to learn to cater to a different market, etc. And to me, it's like a first step before exporting, and we tend to jump into exporting when we should do small steps, like try and cater for your hotel or something like this in this case.
When we talk about making of the Pacific a food destination, the role of chefs in hotels and restaurants are crucial in that regard. They are the ones who are supposed to come up with innovative and creative ideas in blending local authentic recipes with fine modern cuisine. A young entrepreneur, Calais Jade Stanley Chulit, the owner of Nourish Cafe based in Samoa, was invited by the workshop organizers to travel to Vanuatu to share her experience and the concept of her cafe specialized in promoting authentic, modern, nutritious Pacific cuisine.
Nourish Cafe was established last year in February, and the concept behind the cafe is to support local, support organic, and promote wellness. So we do that by using local and organic foods, produce, with a contemporary twist on Pacific cuisine. So that's basically it. We cater to local clientele, the local expat clientele, and also the tourism industry. There's a huge demand for a local experience. You know, as a tourist, when you go to a country, regardless of what that country is, you want an authentic experience, and I feel by offering authentic, local Pacific food, we're giving them, you know, we're we're catering to that. So at Nourish we don't serve French fries or burgers. We serve baked taro or breadfruit wedges baked in coconut oil. We don't use tomato sauce. We make our own relishes from star fruit and turmeric and tomato, which we serve with as condiments. We don't serve fizzy drinks or any of that rubbish. We serve coconut and freshly squeezed lemon juice, fresh herbal teas, smoothies.
For David Thomas from Trinidad and Tobago, the Pacific should capitalize on its tropical local food and organize festivals.
Food festivals, yeah, because you all have the good food here. You all have the good organic food, things you're growing in volcanic soil, and I think you all have the stuff to sell. And you need to sell it, package it, and get people to come here to experience it. Because this is what people my age want to experience. They want to experience the authenticity of the Pacific. I mean, Barbados, they have their ramen food festival. In Trinidad, we have our Blue Food Festival. And these are things that you all have here. You all have good coffee, you have good rums, you have good beers, you have the foods, the ground foods. And you need to push these things and market these things and put them out there.
The workshop on new opportunities in the agritourism sector in the Pacific was organized by the Vanuatu Government in conjunction with the Pacific Islands Private Sector Organization, PIPSO, the South Pacific Tourism Organization, SPTO, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and the Technical Center for Agricultural and Rural Cooperation, CTA. More than 20 participants comprised of agri-entrepreneurs, representatives from the tourism and agriculture sectors, from the Pacific region as well as from Africa and from the Caribbean,